Sunday, Yud Sivan, Tavshin Ein Gimel. We are in Teres Menachem Sefer HaMamorim, Tavshin Yud Aleph, Tavshin Yud Beis. In the Maimer of Shabbos Pashas Pinchas, Vorchem HaChidush Menachem of Tavshin Yud Aleph, Dibra Machel Tzav. We are on page Kuf Chof Gimel. And we are about 12 lines from the top. The line begins with the word Shalachein. We'll go back a few lines. We'll start from V'zeu HaChidush, the line beginning with the word V'tachtenim by the full stop. So we're learning about Karbonos, and the Rebbe is explaining the reason why it is the central way and method in which to serve Hashem. Of course, we brought Karbonos in the Beis HaMikdash, and the Rebbe explained that there were also Karbonos there would have been Karbonos in Gan Eden, by Necheyu, Gan Eden la'avdo l'shamra. L'shamra is a reference to Karbonos, as it says concerning the Kama Talmud, Tishmeru lahakiv lib'mayadeh. And there will also be Karbonos when Mashiach comes. And the Rebbe is explaining that the shleimus of the inyan of bringing Karbonos, the state of wholesomeness, the ultimate state of bringing Karbonos, will be when Mashiach comes. The Rebbe explained that Korban in the Beis HaMikdash has two aspects to it. One is to draw down godliness, but also the concept of Avodas HaBirurim, to lift and to deal with those negative elements, to refine the negative elements that are around us in our environment. Whereas in Gan Eden, since there was no Ra, Gan Eden was completely godliness and good and so on and so forth. Therefore, in Gan Eden, the idea of bringing Karbonos there would have been for the purpose of just for the purpose of drawing down godliness, as opposed to what? Also dealing with any negative aspects that might exist. Similarly, when Mashiach comes, since it will be since Hashem will remove the spirit of impurity from the face of the earth, what's going to be the concept of Karbonos then? Also to draw down Getlachkeit into the world, because there's nothing to refine or to lift, as it were. If that's the case, what is the difference between Karbonos in Gan Eden and Karbonos when Mashiach comes? That's what we're learning now. And the Rebbe explained that Adam Arishan serving Hashem's serving Hashem was similar to that of the Avos, of the forefathers. We know that the Avos fulfilled the mitzvahs even before they were given. However, as it says in the pasuk in Shiur HaShirim, L'reach shmonecha, the fragrance of your oils, that's a reference to the mitzvahs of the forefathers, that the mitzvahs of the forefathers was like a fragrance, compared to a fragrance which passes. You can't grab hold of it, it's present, and then it's gone. Similarly, the effects of the mitzvahs that the Avos fulfilled were transient. The effects in this world, in the objects with which they fulfilled the mitzvahs, they were transient. The Kedusha did not remain. The holiness did not remain in the world. It was there, and then it was gone. Similarly, Adam Rishon, his serving Hashem was in the same way. It was at the level of reiches, fragrance. And the Rebbe said, even though Adam Rishon possessed a aspect which the Avos did not possess, which the forefathers did not possess, and that is that even not only his soul was from Hashem, but his body was also fashioned Yitzir Kapash Kadosh Baruch Hu by the hands of Hashem, so to speak, as it says in the pasuk that Hashem took. It says in the verse in Bereshis, in Genesis, it says that Hashem took Ofra min ha'adamah, earth, dust from the earth, and he fashioned it into a body, and then he blew into his nostrils a breath of life, a soul of life. So even his body was fashioned by Hashem, which means it would seem that there was some kind of a link between the godly and the physical in the embodiment of Adam Rishon. Nevertheless, the chiddush is, what is the added anomaly here, that notwithstanding the fact that he had this connection to Hashem, even from the point of view of his body, nonetheless his mitzvahs were in a mode of fragrance, in a transient way. And that's what we're up to. V'zeu hachiddush. This is the innovation. This is the chiddush, the added surprising element here, that notwithstanding the fact that within him there seemed to have been the fusion of the upper and the lower, in the fact that even his body was fashioned by Hashem. Nevertheless, she'afal pikein, nonetheless, his mode of serving Hashem was merely in a mode of fragrance, meaning it was transient. V'hainu, why is that? Indeed, because at that point, when Adam was created, there was not yet the nullification of the decree. Which decree? As mentioned before in the previous year, the parable of the king who had issued a decree that the people of Rome should not descend to Syria, and the people of Syria should not ascend to Rome. This is a parable for what? For the chasm that existed between the upper realms and the lower realms, that they should not fuse. They were two distinct domains before Matan Torah. So at the time of Adam Rishon, when Adam was in the Garden of Eden, that decree of the upper realms and the lower realms not to fuse was not yet nullified. When was it nullified? It was nullified on the Amshach of the Matan Torah. It was nullified through that the drawing down of godliness which took place at the giving of the Torah at Sinai. Shehi Hamshachas Ha'atzmus Mamish. What was drawn down at the time of the giving of the Torah? The very essence of Hashem, Mamish. Shezehu inyan Anochi. This is the idea of Anochi. The first word of the Aseret Sedikos Ten Commandments is what? Is Anochi, which stands for 4 words. As the Talmud says in Shabbos, Ano Nafshi Ksavis Yehovis, which literally means I myself have written it and given it away. But the Pirush HaPnimi, the inner explanation of this is, as Chassidus explains, is I, Nafshi, myself, Ksavis, have written myself into the Torah, and Yehovis, have given myself away, my essence, in the Torah. Which means to say that it's the idea of the drawing down of the very essence of Hashem, Mamish, through the giving of the Torah, which nullifies the decree that the upper realms and the lower realms should not fuse. That is why the general idea of the giving of the Torah is much higher than the situation and the condition that prevailed in the Garden of Eden at the outset of creation. What does that mean? In the Garden of Eden, when God first created the world and Adam and Eve were placed in the Garden of Eden, the world was in its ultimate state of completeness. There was no sin yet, there was no bad, and so on and so forth. So why is Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah, at a higher level than the state that the world existed in, the condition of the world at the beginning of creation? Matan Torah was already, the giving of the Torah already took place when? After the Chet HaEgel, after the Chet Eitzadas, after the sin of the tree of knowledge. But the answer is because, why is it at a higher level? Because what took place at Matan Torah was the drawing down of the very essence of Hashem. Yes, at the time of the Garden of Eden, when Adam and Eve were there, before they sinned, there was only good, but there hasn't yet been this drawing down of the very essence of Hashem. That took place at Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah. Move on Mimayman Azal, as is understood from the saying of our sages. In the Talmud, ala posik Yom HaShishi, on the verse in Bereshis in Genesis, Yom HaShishi, on the 6th day of creation. What is it? Why does it say Yom HaShishi with a hey? Hey Hayediyah. Hey Hayediyah means it puts an emphasis on that word as the known 6th. So, for example, it says Yom HaShishi. It means the known 6th day. Which is the most famous 6th day? When was the Torah given? We're just coming from Shavuos. It was Vav Sivan, right? The 6th. So it's a reference to the day the Torah was given. What's the connection between Friday or creation and the sixth day on which the Torah was given, the sixth day of Sivan. So the Chachamim say in the Talmud, Tnai Hisna Kadosh Baruch Hu Ma'aseh Bereishis, that at the time of creation, God made a condition with creation, with what He created in the 6 days of creation, and He said as follows: Im Yikablu Yisrael as HaTorah Mutav. If the Jewish people will accept the Torah, fine. B'im lav, and if they will not, I will return the world to a state of chaos and nothingness. In other words, the existence of the world, creation, is dependent on what? On the Torah, on Yidden accepting the Torah. So what does that mean? Why? What, in other words, what took place at the giving of the Torah? At the giving of the Torah, what was drawn down into this world was the very essence of Hashem, through which we are able to fuse the upper and the lower in a state of permanence. Why what does it mean that there's this condition? Because specifically at Sinai, at the giving of the Torah, there was the drawing down of the very essence of Hashem, and not when at the outset of creation, when Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden, before they sinned, with the tree by eating from the tree of knowledge. And therefore, although the quality, the level of serving Hashem through sacrificial offerings in Gan Eden, in the Garden of Eden, is very high, a very great level. At which point the concept of sacrificial offerings was not in order to refinements, to refine the good from the bad. Why? Because in the Garden of Eden, bad did not exist. There was no existence of bad. And the concept of bringing Kabbalas and Gan Eden, sacrificial offerings in the Garden of Eden, was only focused on drawing down godliness down here into the physical world. Notwithstanding this great quality, nevertheless, since this was before the giving of the Torah, it did not possess this element of drawing down the very essence of Hashem mamish. So that is the deficiency in the idea of sacrificial offerings as they were in the Garden of Eden. What is the deficiency in the idea of the sacrificial offerings at the time of the Beis Hamikdash, which was already after the Torah was given, and we already had this idea of drawing down the very essence of Hashem? Well, the Idach Gis, on the other hand, serving Hashem through bringing sacrificial offerings during the period of the first and second temple, although this was already after the Torah was given, when we already had the drawing down of the very essence of Hashem. Mikol Mokim, how is that deficient? What is the deficiency in the sacrificial offerings during the time of the first and second temple? Mikol Mokim, nonetheless, since this was when? After the time that Adam and Eve sinned with eating from the tree of knowledge. At which point, at which point good and bad became mixed together. Therefore, the main aspect, the main focus of the kabbalas of the sacrificial offerings during the first and second temple times was focused on the idea of refining the good from the bad. So although it was after the time of Hamshachas Ha'atzmas, the drawing down of the very essence of Hashem, because it was after the Torah was given. However, it was lacking in that aspect because it was more focused on what? On the idea of refining the good from the bad. However, with the coming of Mashiach speedily in our days, we will possess both qualities. Which two qualities? A, on the one hand, not dealing with refining the good from the bad, because it'll be non-existent, and on the other hand, and drawing down what? But rather focused on what? On drawing down godliness into the world. And which level of godliness? The very essence of Hashem. That is the idea of Karbanis, sacrificial offerings when Mashiach comes. Because in the time to come, Ksiv, it says in the Navi, Es ruach hatuma avir min haaretz. Hashem says, I will remove the spirit of impurity from the face of the earth, from the earth. Because when Mashiach will come, there will be the nullification, the removal of the three impure shells, the impure klippas, which is what? Basically, the forces that are the opposite of holiness, which inhabit and possess, and are possessed within all that which is the opposite of kedusha, of holiness. That will be removed when Mashiach will come. That is also the meaning of that which it says in the Navi and prophets, that a wolf will live with a sheep, will live with the sheep. That even a wolf chayat mei, which is an impure animal, which is from the three impure shells, even that will be refined to the extent that what? The three impure shells, the gimel klippas atmeis, will be removed from the lion, from the wolf, as a result of which it'll be able to live with what? With the sheep, which is what? The pure animal. In other words, it's a reference to the impure animals being lifted to the level of the pure. In other words, the removal of the spirit of impurity from the earth. Now, what happened? We also know that there's klipas nega. Klipas nega is the illuminated or the illuminating shell. That is the klipa, which is neutral, as we learn in Chassidus. Gimel klipas, that means the three impure klipas shells are at a level which we can't lift. That's why they're non-kosher. We can't deal with them. What's shalosh klipas atmeis? Those are the neutral klippa. If we use something that possesses, all the kosher animals are from what? From klipas nega, right? And if we use it for the purposes of serving Hashem, we lift it into kedusha. What's going to happen when Mashiach comes? The shalosh klipas atmeis, the three impure shells, will be removed. So what's going to happen to klipas nega? So the Rebbe says a word over here that if we're talking about the spirit of impurity being removed, it means not only with the three impure shells, the gimel klipas atmeis, be removed, but klipas nega will be lifted to a higher level. Umizem, move on. From this is understood, shegam klipas nega, also the illuminating shell, which is the intermediary between holiness and the three impure shells, will also be at a higher level. In other words, there will be nothing to refine and to purify when Mashiach comes, because everything will be in its best and purest and holiest state. So what's the concept of bringing karbanos when Mashiach comes? So what comes out from all of this? It comes out that when in the time to come, the animal which is being offered, and the person that's offering the animal as a sacrificial offering will be at a higher level. And as the Rebbe said before, when at the outset, that in the korban there is what? Three elements. Lachmi li'ishai tishmeru, right? There is lachmi, my bread, which means that which is being offered. Tishmeru, you should bring the korban. That's a reference to whom? The person that brings the korban. And then there is the ishai, my fire, Hashem's fire, which comes as a result of what? Of the person bringing the animal as a korban. And the Rebbe said, according to the level and condition of that which is being offered, and the one that's offering the korban, the sacrificial offering, that determines that the level of godliness is being drawn down. So since the animal and the person, when Mashiach will come, will be at a higher level, or b'meila, automatically, page Kuf Chav Daled at the top, the idea, the concept of bringing karbanos, sacrificial offerings, then will not be for the purpose of what? Of refinement, because everything will be refined already. It will be for the purpose of drawing down godliness into the world, just like it was in the Garden of Eden before the sin of the tree of knowledge. But in addition to that, what added element will karbanos, sacrificial offerings, have when Mashiach comes over and above karbanos, sacrificial offerings in Gan Eden? In addition to that, the sacrificial offerings in the time of Mashiach will also possess the quality of drawing down the very essence of Hashem, which can be accomplished only after the Torah was given. And in that sense, it'll be l'mayla me'akarbanos shebegan Eden, higher than what? Than the sacrificial offerings that were to be offered in the Garden of Eden. That is why, specifically concerning the sacrificial offerings, when Mashiach comes, it says we will offer up karbanos again, like the commandment of your will. What does that mean? It means that that is the ultimate aspiration. Because through this bringing of the karbanos, when Mashiach comes, we actually bring about the main idea of making this physical, lowly world into a dwelling place for the very essence of Hashem. I just want to point out one thing, that in the Shiur on Friday, when we were talking about Lamata Masarat Tfochim and Lamayla Masarat Tfochim, because of Kitzer, I said 10 cubits instead of 10. I used 10 cubits a number of times instead of 10 handbreadths. But basically, when we're talking about Lamayla Masarat Tfochim, Lamata Masarat Tfochim, a tefach is a handbreadth, not a cubit. A cubit is a amma. And Masarat Tfochim means 10 handbreadths. So this just to correct that. I tried to edit it out in the recorded version, but it was difficult to do so because of how it was interspersed.
You have to do that again.
Sorry? Give the Shiur again.
Friday again.
Okay.
But with this whole huge question comes, how can we lose the base of Mikdash if we can't offer karbanos? Because then that's, in a way, it's a huge test. How are you supposed to deal with it? This is the way of innovating after Gan Eden before the time of Shiur. How can you not have a base of Mikdash?
Well, then we have tefillah, which has been makom karban. We have tefillah, which is a substitute. The Rebbe, there's a sikha from the Rebbe, it's Chav Cheshvan, I think Tavshem Mem Aleph or Tavshem Mem, is a beautiful, beautiful sikha, where the Rebbe speaks about a very fundamental point. It says in Kabbalah that, speaking about Avodas HaBerurim, the serving Hashem through the process of refinement, what are we refining? That they are the holy sparks that fell. What shalosh klippas atmei is the three impure shells that we're talking about, or the klippas nega and so on and so forth. We're talking about sparks of holiness that fell into a very low level. They fell down from a very high level into a very low level, and that's what we have to do. That's what our Avodas Hashem is, Avodas HaBerurim. We have to lift and refine these sparks of holiness in order to bring them to their state of, to their desired state. And when we fulfill that, we bring the world to its state of perfection, and Mashiach comes. That's in simple terms, in very simple terms, what it's all about. Where did these sparks fall from? From Olam HaTorah, from the world of chaos. In the world of chaos, there was something known as Shviras HaKelim, the breaking up of the vessels, because of the great divine energy that existed there. And the vessels not being able to handle it, they sort of exploded, and these fragments, which are sparks of holiness, fell very low. How many sparks of holiness, how many sparks fell? Reish Pei Ches Netzutzes, 288. And this is what we have to do, refine 288 Netzutzes. These sparks. So it says that when the Yidden were in Egypt, they refined 202 of these sparks. And that is why it says in the Pasuk, the Gam Erev Rav Ola Iman, that the Erev Rav, what's the definition of Erev Rav?
Mixed multitude.
The mixed multitude went out with the Jews when they left Egypt. Rav is Reish Beis. That's a reference to the 202 sparks of holiness which they extracted from Mitzrayim. Comes the Alter Rebbe and asks a question, and I think it's in Torah. Well, what's going on? 210 years in Golos Mitzrayim, they managed to refine and lift how much? 202. How many? 202. From then on, we're in Golos already out of the how many years? One Golos and another Golos. Mashiach hasn't yet come, right? Which means that the job hasn't yet been complete. So 86 are left over, and it takes so many thousands of years to lift and refine 86. So the Alter Rebbe explains that there are sparks, whole sparks, and then there are fragments of the sparks. Which means to say as follows. A higher neshama can lift a greater amount, if you will, of sparks or of the spark. It takes a higher level of soul, a soul at a higher level, to be able to deal with a whole nitzutz, a whole spark, a whole a whole nitzutz, right? The earlier generations were at a higher level. So the neshamas of the Eden that were in Mitzrayim were at such a high level that they were able to deal with 202. From that point and on, there's Yeridas Haderis, there is a descent in the generations in the level of the neshamas, and therefore it takes a greater number of neshamas to lift a lesser number of nitzutzas, because each neshama of the later generations is not lifting a whole nitzutz, a whole spark, as it were, but a fragment. And with this, the Rebbe explains why we find, for example, the Baal Shem Tov had 60 Talmidim. The Maggid already had 120. The Rebbe is talking about the fact that as you go on through the generations, you see that the Rebbe had more and more shluchim going and doing more and more things around the world. And, it says, for example, that the Maggid took his Talmidim, 120 Talmidim, the Rebbe says this in the Sikha, and he divided the world, and he said, your territory is to look after. He gave each one a territory to look after spiritually. So the Maggid had 120. In future generations, there were many, many more. In our generation, now you have thousands of. And then it even goes on and says not only shluchim, but everybody has a job to do in terms of lifting the world to its state of perfection. So what's going on? Why then 120 was enough, and now we are more meritorious? We can even people at a lower level than the Maggid's Talmidim can now deal with this refinement? Says the Rebbe, on the contrary. Because the generations have descended to a lower level, the neshamas are at a lower level than the previous generations, therefore it takes more to lift less, to raise up less. Right? And the Rebbe goes into a whole discussion about this concept about prayer being in the place of karbanos. But this, the Rebbe explains the idea of prayer being in the place of karbanos. We know that when it came to the carbon, the Rebbe says, there was a job that the Kohen had, there was a job that the Levi had, and there was a job that the Yisrael had. And there were three distinct jobs. And when it comes to davening, we don't find that davening, a section of the davening specifically for Kohenim, a section of the davening specifically for Leviim, and a section of the davening specifically for Yisraelim. Everybody davens the whole davening together. So the Rebbe says because the neshamas, each neshama really possesses an element of everybody else's neshama. So every Yisrael has an element of Kohen and Levi in him. Every Levi has an element of Kohen and Yisrael in him, and every Kohen has an element of Levi and Yisrael in him. However, says the Rebbe, in the Beis Hamikdash, when you brought the korban, it was at a higher level, so you needed more of the Kohen to deal with the Kohen aspect of the korban. You needed more of the Levi to deal with the Levi aspect, and so with the Yisrael. Therefore, you had three distinct jobs. Now that davening is at a lower level, so even every individual Jew with the Kohen and Levi and Yisrael aspects in his soul can deal with the davening on that level. But the Rebbe says it's a necessary process in order to lift the lowered elements of those sparks, of the nitzutz. So in answer to your question, it's not just that we're deficient. Yes, we're deficient for a reason, in order to deal with the lower elements, so that we can lift even that. Let me just finish off. Let's finish the last section of the Ma'amah. Chapter 6. The state of completeness of serving Hashem through bringing Kabbanas la'asid loving in the time to come, comes as a result of serving Hashem specifically in the time of exile. And according to the known rule, that the cause, that which causes something, must be higher than that which is being caused through it. Why? Because it's only through its strength. It has the strength to cause that result. How they move on, it's understood. Is the great quality and how special it is and how great it is to serve the service of Hashem, specifically in the time of Golus, in exile. Why? Because it's specifically through serving Hashem in exile that we come to the completeness, to the level of serving Hashem properly when Mashiach comes. And we could say, this is also the meaning of the pasuk in Eicha, where it says that the enemies of the Yidden caught up to her, Bein HaMetzarim. They caught her Bein HaMetzarim between the narrow boundaries. Over there it's in the negative sense, right? That they chased her and they trapped her, and that's where they caught up with her. Over here the Rebbe says, when can you, when we find ourselves Bein HaMetzarim between the narrow places, which means in Golus, specifically then we can comprehend and reach, reach the very highest comprehensions, which is a preparation to what? Specifically, that is a preparation to what's going to take place when Mashiach comes. Until we come to the time when we will actually have the serving Hashem through sacrificial offerings in the time to come, the idea of which is the ultimate state of completeness, of making a dwelling place for Hashem, with the coming of Mashiach, a righteous Mashiach, speedily in our days. And in Mitzvah tomorrow, we will start a brand new Maimer.